A lot to get to this morning on this story. Let's bring in Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, who's been following this case from the very beginning. Tony, you disagree with this assessment, so he might not get any jail time.
Well, this is criminal negligence as far as I'm concerned. I mean, let's face it. You brought up the very key point here is we traded 5 4-star general equivalents to get him back. And most importantly, this guy defected. He went over to the enemy. He gave them aid and comfort. And yes, he was tortured. He was held for 5 years. But it was because he walked away. He presented himself to the enemy. And let me be painfully clear here. At least 7 U.S. soldiers, 3 British soldiers died in the process of trying to recover him after his bad behavior. And one last mitigating fact, which I think is important. The defense's line that he left post, was trying to walk 19 miles to find a general, is a lie. So when you basically add the layers of stupidity up, the guy should be put away for at least another 5 years as far as I'm concerned. And it's not over yet. As much as this recommendation is for this special court-martial, General Abrams, Robert Abrams, has the final decision. He could ratchet it back up to a general officer court-martial, or he could go the other way and put it in administrative channels. So it's not over yet.
Well, in the beginning, it looked like he may have been abducted by terrorists, and then it came out, you know, there was just outrage from folks who are, you know, out there with him, searching for him. For 45 days, this search goes on. And you mentioned that 10 NATO troops are killed. What does this do for morale, this new development this morning?
Well, 2 things. First, the general officers I am close to and my mentors in the Army are basically saying you cannot have soldiers simply saying, I've had enough, I don't want to play anymore, I'm going to walk away, especially in combat. So that's the first factor. He has to be held accountable for that. Separate that from whatever punishment he gets. But, Andy, you can't simply have people saying, after they've taken the oath of office, they've put the uniform on, they've deployed to a combat zone saying, you know, it's just too hard, or I just don't want to play anymore. So I think this is where it's at right now. And yeah, morale will suffer by the fact that you see people every day going out and doing the hard work of defending the nation, seeing this one individual do things which are completely criminal as far as I'm concerned.
Lieutenant Colonel, as a reporter, I want to be fair here and try to figure out what possible justification would the Army officer have here to say that it should be a lighter sentence? Can you take us in, at least, even if you disagree with his reasoning, what would be the reasoning here, number one? And number two, in terms of the general potentially stepping in and overturning this, how often do they accept the recommendations of an officer in this case? This type of case.
Latter part of the question first. Yeah, I think it's fairly common that they do accept it. In this case, though, because everything is so political, I don't know which way General Abrams is going to go. I mean, this has been one of those things, Ed, as you know, this has been political from day one. Secondly, regarding the ostensible punishment, many general officers, to include one of my closest friends, says, well, you know, he suffered for 5 years. He spent 5 years under harsher conditions than you would at Leavenworth, and maybe it's time to just let him go. But everybody agrees he should get a bad conduct discharge and some other very harsh things. Yeah. So I think that's where the breakdown comes. Yes, he's going to get court-martialed, the degree of which we don't know. He can still end up in a special court-martial with some level of jail time. I mean, you can still go to jail for a year. So it's not over yet in that account either. But that's the philosophy. Basically, he's already suffered enough. And basically, look, I got to give my cred to Mr. Fidel, his lawyer. They've done a great job of presenting this to create a sympathetic view to the public and to the military court system. It's just not accurate.
Well, before you go, I want to get your take on the 5 fighters, because there are conflicting reports. Sources telling Fox News that 3 of the 5 fighters that were exchanged for Bo Bergdahl have re-engaged with their terror network, though the State Department disagrees with that, says that none of them have been re-engaged and that they are being closely monitored. What's your take?
Well, look, I'm going to go with Catherine Herridge on this. Catherine is talking to the intelligence community, not to the State Department. And let's come on. The State Department, the credibility they've got right now with some of the issues they're dealing with regarding Hillary Clinton's email. Look, the bottom line is this. Those individuals were returned. A very high price was paid. I believe that they are back in contact. And again, if you just look at the face of it, these are generals who are basically able to remotely influence troops that are now in combat with our forces. We just had a Kunduz. We just had a major engagement with the Taliban. So these guys being there available for even intellectual or emotional support is significant. This is no small thing.
Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, thanks for getting up early with us in your analysis. We always
thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Thanks,
Thanks
Colonel.
a lot.
Sure, thanks.
7 minutes after the hour on your Sunday morning, some other stories we're following now. This new overnight, a
Okay,
plane
great,
with
thanks.
2 people.